From a very young age, Maya had always found it difficult to make decisions. As a child, this wasn't always a huge issue. It might have been as simple as standing in front of a shelf of colorful toys, unable to choose which one to play with. Maya would spend long moments staring at the options, weighing their merits in her mind. Should she pick the stuffed bear, which was soft and comforting, or the puzzle that would challenge her thinking? The longer she hesitated, the more the pressure to make the right choice would build up. By the time she finally picked, the moment of enjoyment was often tainted by the worry that she might have chosen wrong. As she grew older, this indecisiveness began to creep into every area of her life. In school, Maya excelled academically, but when it came to making decisions about what extracurricular activities to participate in, she would often find herself stuck. Should she join the drama club and explore her creative side, or should she focus more on academic pursuits like the debate team? The pressure to be perfect in every area of life made her second-guess her every decision, no matter how small. Her indecision didn't stop with school choices. Even in her social life, Maya struggled. She had a few close friends, but deciding what to do on weekends or where to go for a vacation always felt like a major ordeal. Should they go to the beach, a place that was peaceful and familiar, or should they try something new, like a hiking trip in the mountains? Maya would spend hours mulling over options, fearing that making the wrong choice might lead to disappointment or regret. This fear of making a bad decision carried over into her adult life. When Maya reached university, she began to feel the weight of her indecision more acutely. Choosing a major was one of the most significant decisions she had ever faced. Her passion for both literature and environmental science left her torn. She wanted to explore the beauty of the natural world and work towards its preservation, but her love for storytelling and writing also pulled her in a different direction. As she consulted with professors, her friends, and even family members, she was overwhelmed by the conflicting advice. Everyone had a different opinion, and Maya found it nearly impossible to decide which path to pursue. This indecision caused her to miss out on opportunities that could have shaped her future. Instead of fully committing to one path, she tried to juggle both, taking courses in literature and environmental science, but ended up feeling drained and directionless. By the time graduation approached, Maya had not achieved the sense of clarity she had hoped for. She felt as if she had spent years drifting between choices, always afraid to choose a side for fear of missing out on something better. Even after university, Maya's struggle with indecision persisted. When it came time to make major life decisions, like choosing a career path, she found herself paralyzed by uncertainty. Every job opportunity seemed to have its own set of advantages and drawbacks. She felt caught between the dream of a steady, secure career and the urge to follow her passion for meaningful work that could have an impact. The thought of making a decision that could affect her entire future was daunting. She was afraid that no matter what choice she made, she would wonder for the rest of her life what might have happened if she had chosen differently. As her personal and professional life advanced, the indecision weighed heavier on Maya. The more she deferred making choices, the more time passed and the more complex her options became. The fear of regret, the possibility of making the wrong choice, and the pressure to make the perfect decision all combined to keep her stuck. And so, she lived in a state of constant tension, avoiding decisions or putting them off as long as she could, even though she knew that the only way to move forward was to embrace the power of choice and trust herself. It was only when Maya reached a critical turning point, faced with two life-changing offers, that she realized her indecision had been the biggest obstacle to her happiness. She had spent years frozen by the idea that there was a perfect choice out there, when in reality it wasn't about choosing perfectly, it was about choosing boldly with trust in herself and her ability to make the best of whatever path she took. This was the moment that Maya's struggle with indecision began to shift. Through reflection and courage, she began to understand that the fear of making the wrong choice was holding her back from making any choice at all. And with that realization, her journey to a more decisive future had begun. The Crossroads. At the heart of Maya's story, the moment of the crossroads marked a pivotal juncture in her life. It wasn't just a physical place where two roads diverged, but a metaphorical point where the choices she made would determine the course of her future, altering her life in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. After years of living with the burden of indecision, Maya suddenly found herself standing at the edge of a decision that was both thrilling and terrifying. Two paths laid before her, each promising something unique and life-changing. Maya had always been an ambitious person, and her time at university had reinforced her sense of capability and drive. Yet, as she neared the completion of her studies, she faced the daunting reality of the real world, an overwhelming number of opportunities, each one seemingly more important than the last. It was time for her to step beyond the safety of academia and carve out her place in the world. But she wasn't prepared for the intensity of the choices ahead. The first option came in the form of a prestigious law firm based in the city. The firm had been scouting top talent from across the country, and Maya, with her impressive academic record and intellectual sharpness, had caught their attention. They offered her a position as an associate with a high salary, professional development opportunities, and the promise of a successful career in the world of law. The more she thought about it, the more appealing it seemed, especially given the financial stability and the luxurious lifestyle that would accompany such a job. The city, with its sprawling skyline and endless opportunities, was a place where Maya could grow professionally, build connections, and perhaps even find herself among influential circles. However, as she considered this offer, a part of Maya hesitated. She had always been drawn to more meaningful work, and while a career in law seemed respectable and successful, something inside her felt disconnected from it. She couldn't ignore the nagging thought that perhaps her true purpose lay elsewhere, where she could have a direct impact on something she cared deeply about. That's when the second offer arrived, a chance to work with an environmental nonprofit dedicated to protecting the forests near her childhood village. The nonprofit had been doing incredible work in conservation, reforesting areas that had been damaged by industrial development, and creating sustainable programs to educate local communities on the importance of protecting the environment. Maya had always been passionate about nature, and over the years, her connection to the land where she had grown up had only deepened. She remembered childhood summers spent exploring the forests, feeling a profound sense of peace and belonging in the midst of the trees. The idea of returning home to work for a cause she loved, one that aligned with her values and her personal connection to the land, was undeniably attractive. But while the nonprofit offered Maya the opportunity to make a real difference in the world, the financial compensation was much less than what the law firm had promised. The work was unpredictable, with long hours and challenging conditions. There were fewer resources, less stability, and fewer guarantees for career advancement. The security of a well-paying job in the city seemed to outweigh the uncertainty of life at the nonprofit. As Maya weighed her options, the pressure grew. She had always feared the consequences of making the wrong choice, but now the stakes felt higher than ever. Her friends and family offered varying opinions, some encouraging her to seize the opportunity in the city, while others supported her dream of working with the nonprofit. The contrasting perspectives only intensified her internal conflict, as Maya couldn't help but wonder what others might think of her decision. For days, she agonized over the decision, caught between the allure of the city's promises and the deep pull of her roots in the village. Should she pursue a life of comfort, wealth, and societal success, or should she take the risk of following her passion and living a life grounded in purpose, but with the possibility of financial instability and hardship? As the deadline for making her decision approached, Maya found herself paralyzed, unable to move forward. The weight of the decision seemed to hang over her like a cloud, and the more she thought about it, the more she became entangled in a web of possibilities and what-ifs. Each choice seemed to hold a promise of fulfillment, yet both came with their own set of sacrifices. If she chose the law firm, she would gain prestige and financial security, but could she truly find satisfaction in a career that felt disconnected from her passion? On the other hand, if she chose the nonprofit, she would return to her childhood home and fight for a cause she believed in, but could she endure the financial challenges and lack of stability that came with it? Maya began to wonder if there was a right answer, one that would bring her both happiness and success. But the more she searched for the perfect solution, the more she realized that life rarely offered such a thing. The crossroads before her wasn't a matter of right or wrong. It was a matter of what path she felt most aligned with, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. It was in this moment of uncertainty that Maya understood something important. There would never be a perfect moment to make a decision, and no amount of thinking or analyzing would ever lead to the perfect outcome. She had to trust herself to make a choice and accept that any decision would come with its own set of challenges. The key was not in avoiding those challenges, but in having the courage to face them. Maya's true crossroads lay not in choosing between two opportunities, but in learning how to make a decision at all, without allowing fear or doubt to paralyze her. The choice she ultimately made would shape the course of her life, but it was the act of choosing with confidence and trust in herself that marked the true turning point in her journey. The inner conflict, Maya's inner conflict, was the quiet storm that raged inside her mind, preventing her from making a clear choice between the two paths that lay before her. Each offer seemed to pull her in a different direction, creating an internal tug-of-war that made her feel like she was being torn apart. While the world around her continued on with its steady rhythm, Maya stood still, trapped in a maze of thoughts, emotions, and doubts that she couldn't escape. The stakes felt monumental. Her decision would not only shape her future, but also determine the kind of person she would become. In this turmoil, Maya struggled to reconcile her ambitions with her values, her dreams with her fears, and her desires with her responsibilities. On one side, the law firm's offer was compelling. It represented everything that society expected of someone in her position. The job was prestigious, the salary was impressive, and the opportunity to work in a bustling city meant that Maya would be surrounded by like-minded professionals, driven by success and ambition. From the outside, it appeared to be the perfect choice for someone with Maya's intellect and potential. It promised a clear path to financial security, career advancement, and the kind of lifestyle that many people dreamed of. The idea of living in the city was intoxicating. The fast-paced life, the networking opportunities, the possibility of rubbing shoulders with influential people. There was an allure to this future, one that spoke to Maya's desire for recognition, success, and the validation of her talents. Yet, even as these thoughts filled her mind, there was an uneasy feeling deep in her chest, one that reminded her of the values she had held for years. Maya had always been drawn to the idea of doing something meaningful, of contributing to a cause greater than herself. Growing up in a small village surrounded by nature, she had witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of industrialization on the environment. The forests she had once roamed freely in as a child were now being encroached upon, and the land she loved was being exploited for profit. Maya had always dreamt of being a part of the solution to these problems. Her passion for the environment had driven her to study sustainability and conservation in college, and now, with the offer from the nonprofit, she had the chance to return home and work directly on the issues that had always mattered most to her. The environmental organization's offer was an opportunity to reconnect with her roots, to give back to the land that had shaped her identity. It was the kind of work that spoke to her soul, the chance to protect the very forests she had explored as a child, to help restore the ecosystems that had been ravaged by years of neglect. The job wasn't glamorous, and it certainly didn't offer the financial security of the law firm. But there was a sense of purpose in it, a sense of fulfillment that came from working towards something she deeply believed in. This offer seemed to promise a life of authenticity, where she could live in alignment with her values and contribute to a cause that felt significant. Yet, despite the clarity of her passion for the environment, another voice in her mind questioned whether it was the fear of financial instability, the worry that she might struggle to make ends meet, and the doubt that she could build a future in such an unpredictable field loomed large. Maya couldn't escape the harsh reality that a career in conservation might not bring the same rewards as a corporate job in law. What would people think? Would she be seen as naive for choosing purpose over profit? Could she truly make a difference? Or would she be just another idealistic dreamer chasing an unattainable vision? Maya's conflict was not just external, but internal, rooted in her struggle between her dreams and the expectations placed upon her by society, her family, and even herself. On the one hand, there was the pressure to succeed in a way that was tangible and measurable, the desire for the trappings of success, the respect of her peers, and the validation that came with a high-powered job. On the other hand, there was the pull of a quieter, more introspective path, one that aligned with her deep sense of responsibility to the environment and her desire to live authentically, true to the person she had always been at her core. The inner conflict intensified as Maya replayed the options over and over in her mind. She considered the pros and cons of each choice, weighing them against one another like a scale that would never balance. The law firm offered her security and status, but it also felt disconnected from the life she wanted to lead. The nonprofit was grounded in purpose, but it lacked the material rewards that came with a corporate job. Both options seemed to promise fulfillment, but in different ways, and Maya found herself trapped in the question, which one was the right choice for me? Each time she thought she had reached a conclusion, another doubt would surface, throwing her into a new spiral of uncertainty. Should she follow the path that promised her the stability she had always dreamed of, or should she embrace the risk of a life that felt truer to who she was? The pressure to make the perfect decision, one that would guarantee her success, happiness, and a sense of accomplishment became overwhelming, but Maya slowly began to realize that there was no perfect choice. No matter which path she chose, there would always be trade-offs and there would always be challenges to face. The only way forward was to confront the fear of making the wrong choice and embrace the reality that no decision was without risk. Maya's inner conflict wasn't just about which job to choose. It was a reflection of her larger struggle with self-identity. She was torn between the person she thought she should be according to society's standards and the person she truly wanted to be according to her values and passions. The conflict was about reconciling these two sides of herself, finding a way to move forward without losing sight of who she was at her core. In the end, Maya understood that the inner conflict she was facing was not just about making a choice. It was about learning to trust herself. It was about letting go of the fear of making the wrong decision and embracing the courage to follow her heart. By acknowledging the doubts, fears, and desires that had been clouding her mind, Maya was finally able to make a decision. Not because it was perfect, but because it was true to who she was and what she believed in. The inner conflict had been the catalyst for her growth, pushing her to confront her fears and trust in her ability to shape her future. Sleepless Nights. Maya's struggle with her decision reached its peak in the long, sleepless nights that became a recurring part of her life. Each evening, as the moon rose high in the sky and the world outside fell into stillness, Maya would lie awake in her bed, her mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. The weight of the decision was too heavy for her to bear during the day when the noise of life and the demands of others gave her a temporary distraction. But once the quiet of the night settled in, the questions would resurface, louder and more insistent than ever. She had always been a person who valued rest and peace, someone who needed sleep to recharge both her body and mind. But now, the very act of lying down to rest had become a battleground. The moment her head hit the pillow, the anxiety would start to build, a knot tightening in her chest. She would toss and turn, unable to escape the internal storm brewing in her thoughts. No matter how many times she told herself to let go, to stop overthinking, her mind refused to settle. Each possible outcome, every imagined scenario of what her life could look like, based on the decision she made, played out in vivid detail, one after the other. In one version, she accepted the law firm job and moved to the city. She imagined herself walking through the gleaming glass doors of the firm, her new colleagues looking at her with respect and admiration. She pictured the high-end apartment she would move into, the shiny new car, the lunches at exclusive restaurants with people who had risen through the ranks of the corporate world. The thought of security, financial freedom, and the ability to enjoy the luxuries she had always dreamed of made her feel both excited and terrified. Could she really adapt to that fast-paced, high-pressure world? Would she be able to keep up with the demands of the job? And, more unsettling still, would she feel fulfilled in this life, or would she end up feeling hollow, chasing after something that didn't truly resonate with her deeper self? In another imagined scenario, she returned to her childhood village and took the job with the environmental nonprofit. This version of her future was quieter, slower, but equally compelling. She could feel the crisp air of the forest she had once roamed, the soft earth beneath her feet, the peace that came with knowing she was making a tangible difference. The work was meaningful, and it was aligned with her passions, helping to restore the forests, working to protect the ecosystems she had grown up with. The very thought of standing on the front lines of environmental change filled her with a deep sense of purpose. Yet, the shadow of doubt would soon creep in. Would the work be enough? Would she be able to make a real impact, or would she become disillusioned by the slow, grinding pace of change? Could she manage to live comfortably on the modest salary, especially when the future seemed so uncertain? The contrast between the two options was stark, and it made it nearly impossible for Maya to make a clear decision. The more she thought about her future, the more the voices in her head grew louder, each side pulling her in different directions. As the clock ticked on, hours slipping by unnoticed, she found herself trapped in an endless loop of what-ifs and buts. Every choice seemed to come with its own set of potential regrets, its own version of what might have been. Maya's insomnia worsened as the pressure to make a decision mounted. Each night she would stare at the ceiling, mentally exhausted but unable to find rest. The physical act of sleep became an insurmountable challenge. She would find herself staring at the clock, watching the minutes tick by, knowing that the decision had to be made soon, but feeling utterly paralyzed. It was as if her mind had become its own prison, holding her captive in the very act of trying to plan her future. Her sleepless nights weren't just about the two job offers. They were a reflection of the larger tension she had carried within herself for years. The tension between what she thought she should do and what she wanted to do. They were about the fear of making the wrong choice, the fear of living with regret. Every time she closed her eyes, she would replay conversations with family members, friends, and mentors, each one offering advice and perspectives, but leaving her feeling even more unsure of which path was truly the right one. She questioned everything she had ever thought she wanted for herself. Was she chasing the right dream? Was she driven by ambition or by fear of failure? Was she running towards something or simply running away from something else? And just because something makes you feel proud and equals excitable does not mean that it also objectively is better for you. So the assignment that I'm going to give you is, her mind would also wander to more existential thoughts as Maya started questioning her own sense of self. Who was she really? Was she someone who could thrive in the competitive world of corporate law, living a life of achievement and outward success? Or was she someone who belonged in the quiet hum of a smaller, simpler life, working for a cause that resonated with her soul, even if it came with hardship and struggle? The truth was that Maya wasn't sure who she wanted to be. The question wasn't just about which job to take. It was about who she would become in the process of making that choice. As the days went on, the sleepless nights became more frequent. Maya began to feel the effects of her insomnia. She grew tired, irritable, and emotionally drained. Her concentration slipped, and the once clear path forward now seemed even murkier. She became frustrated with herself, angry that she couldn't simply decide and move on. It felt like the weight of the decision was growing heavier by the day, as if she was stuck in a holding pattern, unable to break free. Finally, one evening, after another restless night, Maya reached a breaking point. As she lay in bed, tears welled up in her eyes, not because she was afraid of the choices, but because she was tired of being paralyzed by the fear of making them. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel the exhaustion and frustration she had been pushing aside. She realized that her sleepless nights were not just a symptom of indecision, they were a reflection of her deeper struggle with control, perfectionism, and the overwhelming desire to make the right choice. It was in this moment of emotional vulnerability that Maya made a breakthrough. She understood that the decision wasn't about finding the perfect answer. It was about trusting herself and having the courage to take a leap of faith. The sleepless nights were a reflection of her inner battle, but they had also led her to the realization that the act of choosing, of stepping into the unknown, was in itself a form of growth. Maya finally decided to let go of the need for certainty and perfection. She knew she couldn't control everything about the future, but she could control her willingness to make a decision and live with it. In that moment of clarity, the weight of her indecision seemed to lift, and she felt a sense of calm she hadn't felt in weeks. The sleepless nights, while exhausting, had been the catalyst for her growth. A reminder that sometimes, in order to find peace, you have to first face the chaos and uncertainty of your own thoughts. Conclusion: Maya's journey was one of profound self-discovery. The decision that had once seemed impossible became an opportunity for growth and transformation. Throughout her sleepless nights, inner conflict, and search for clarity, she learned that the hardest choices are often the ones that force us to confront not just the external world, but the very essence of who we are. In her case, the struggle wasn't just about choosing between two job offers. It was about reconnecting with her values, her purpose, and her own inner truth. Through introspection, mindfulness, and conversations with trusted mentors, Maya realized that there was no perfect decision, only the decision that felt most aligned with who she was becoming. She discovered that clarity wasn't a sudden moment of revelation, but a process of aligning her choices with her deeper desires. It was not about avoiding risk or uncertainty, but about having the courage to step forward, trusting that each choice would shape her into the person she was meant to be. Ultimately, Maya chose the path that felt true to her, the one that allowed her to live authentically and contribute to the causes that mattered most to her. In doing so, she found peace, not in the absence of doubt, but in the acceptance of her own power to navigate the uncertainties of life. Her decision became a testament to the fact that, while we can't control everything that comes our way, we can always control how we choose to respond. By embracing both the challenges and rewards of her choice, Maya stepped into a future that was no longer defined by fear of making the wrong decision, but by the confidence to create her own path. In the end, Maya realized that the true measure of success wasn't found in the job title or the external validation she once sought, but in the quiet satisfaction of knowing she was living a life that felt authentic and meaningful, one that was uniquely her own.